Okay, I guess I'll open it up for questions from the committee.
Hi. Carrie, thank you very much. Could you help us understand the issues of fortification with vitamin A and vitamin D in yogurt and cheese? I understand that the General Mills Yoplait product has it, some don't. I guess it's hard for some of us to wrap our head around when we know the fluid milk is fortified, so why aren't all the cheeses and yogurts?
Right. So fluid milk, as you said, whole milk is fortified with D. And then low-fat milks are required because you're lowering the fat, you're removing some A. They cannot be nutritionally inferior. We have to add back A to low-fat milks. So they have A and D. I'll just want to clarify that both D is optional in the standards of identity, but almost virtually all fluid milk is fortified with D. It's not a requirement. And in a few products that want to claim all natural, like a very niche product, you will not see D in for milk. When we get to yogurts, we have some outdated standards of identity so that they don't have to follow the nutritional inferiority with lower fat products having to add A. So it is voluntary to add A. And it's also voluntary to add D to yogurt. When we get to cheese, we're working back to the nutritional inferior. So if you have a regular cheese, it's not fortified. If you have a low-fat cheese, then it gets fortified with vitamin A, so it's not nutritionally inferior. We also, on top of this, this is FDA regulations, have some requirements related to vitamin D fortification, that they have to first, under food additive provisions, be allowed in certain foods, very specific foods that can be fortified with vitamin D, and exact amounts based on toxicity. So not all cheeses can even be fortified with vitamin D. So it is very complex.
Thank you, Carrie, for that mini lesson on vitamin A and D fortification.
I have a question for Tammy. You said that you could talk a little bit how long it takes to adjust to the new to a change in requirements, and so if you could tell us a little bit about that. And then I have another question, which is just, you sort of described this thing where for baby food manufacturers, WIC is an enormous part of the market, so there's a lot of power of WIC to move things, but what is the right, and then Honey Nut Cheerios, you're not going to change. So what's the middle ground where WIC can still have some influence?
And if I forget to answer any of those, let me know. In terms of the time it takes to change an address, I think this is a little bit intertwined. So the first part is how big of a customer is WIC to a particular brand or product or whatever. So baby food was the one example. When you have 50%, you're going to change. You're going to chase that down. The other consumers are probably going to follow along with whatever you do. And I may be speaking out of turn, Jody. You can correct me later. But that really drives that category. For cereal, for example, and it's not that we won't change Honey Nut Cheerios. We have tried. We have tried, and it just doesn't work because it's such a huge brand and such a great percentage of the population are not on WIC. We can't make a change where they will no longer buy it, that they will no longer like it. And so we, in terms of reformulation, it might sound rather obvious. Well, just reduce the sugar. Well, it's not quite so obvious because it's a formula, and so it can impact other things like how it goes through your manufacturing facilities, its shelf life, how does it feel in the mouth. If you decrease sugar, you have to increase something else. So there's a host of different things that happen, and we would test it all along the way. And it's no secret for anybody that we would have wanted the #1 cereal in America to be on WIC if we could. We've tested it, and it just isn't liked as much, and so we can't risk our other population. So those changes and shelf life studies, which differ by product type, by the way. Doing a shelf life study, I believe, in a fluid, refrigerated type of a product is very different than, by shelf life studies, it means how long will this product stay fresh on the shelf. So that can take an awful long time. There are also impacts on net weight, which, you know, why does it take so long to change net weight? And if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'd love to talk to you about that, because it's very important for people to understand the industry, not just from a manufacturer, but also from vendors. A lot of the industry is designed to be as efficient as it possibly can. And that means from the time we get the product into our manufacturing facilities, and let me just take cereal as an example, because I know a lot about cereal, oddly enough. If you think about a box of cereal, let's say Cheerios, there's 4 different sizes, right? And we are regulated by how much we fill that with product, so that we're not deceiving the public if we, you know, that you think you're getting this much, but you're not. There's fill rates, and we have to go within a particular amount of that. Now so that's Cheerios. Take Total Whole Grain, which is a very dense flake, or Frosted Mini Wheats, a very dense product. It's going to fill up differently, right? One's really heavy and one's light. And so we have different package sizes. It goes through our manufacturing facility. We want it to be as efficient as we can. We're ordering cardboard boxes. When we're done with all of that and we put it on the shelf, it is often the net weight is the variable that changes to deal with the differences in the product, so that we don't have to order, I'm making this up, 16 different sizes of cartons to deal with all the various types of cereals that we have, because warehousing that, making it go through our manufacturing line, getting on a pallet. There's something called overhang on a pallet. So imagine if you had a pallet of product that were all different sizes of boxes and some of it was hanging over. It's going to get damaged during the distribution process, and then that's a lot of money lost. So you'll see pallets are very square to be very efficient. Another part of that is the distribution system. You fill a full truckload of product that's all tightly packed, you have fewer trucks on the road, you're using less gas, it's all very efficient. Then we bring it over to Kroger. He's got a warehouse. He wants his warehouse efficient too. So all of the pallets are going into his warehouses, and he doesn't want overhang either, because he just bought that product from us. And if it's damaged, now it's costing him money. And then you go to the grocery shelf. If you think about when you go to a grocery shelf, all the shelves are equally aligned. They're not going like this all over the place. So they want to have boxes that fit nicely and look nice on the shelf. And so for a product like Cheerios, we have 4 different sizes, and we like all our stuff to fit in that box. So again, it's the net weight that changes. So when states require particular net weights, we're not going to just do it for that state. It has to make sense for the rest of the community. And WIC is very important, and we will. You guys know it. Manufacturers will reformulate. Takes time. You saw it with soy beverages. You saw it with 100% pasta. But it is a challenge, and it is creating inefficiencies in the system. And that's why you might feel a little bit of the pressure from the manufacturers on, you know, it's just not so easy. So I know that was a little bit of a long answer, but I just want to demonstrate the complexity that goes with that it isn't just so easy.
And so then if the weight requirements were not so inflexible, it would make it easier to reformulate and not meet the weight requirement, is what you were
Yes,
trying to
ma'am.
tell us earlier. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question.
Tammy, could you talk a little bit more about upsizing? So if I understand you correctly, let's just use yogurt for example. My understanding is one of the reasons WIC is going with the 32 ounces is cost issues. But I think what I'm hearing you say, just for sake of it, say there's six ounce containers. Are you saying that you would advocate for the WIC participants to be able to buy the 6 ounce containers and have slightly less than the 32 ounces, not exceed it, but come in slightly less,
That's
rather
right.
than needing the exact amount?
That's right. That particular segment, the tub segment, it is about 15% of category sales. The consumers who typically buy 32-ounce tubs of yogurt are typically heavy users, and they're using them mostly for recipes. And so it is difficult, and we've seen that some states are having challenges, especially with whole fat, because a lot of it's non-fat and low fat, but the whole fat has been a particular challenge for some. We could provide additional data on this, but when I looked at this back in 2012, and it's another important thing to consider back on this, the benefit of WIC approving foods that are commonly consumed and available. It means that if Clyde was saying canned foods in California, canned vegetables, not so much, that's California, right? They've got, I mean, that's terrific. But with yogurt, if the vast majority of the volume are in these individual serve cups, typically as manufacturers, so 37%, I said, of all unit sales are for the 6-ounce traditional cup. That means that's where we are selling the most of our volume. And that means that's where we're putting our sales. And it's what, if we're going to give vendors, it gets very complicated, but for big vendors, we offer incentives to, you know, try to put that items on sale. That is where the money is going to go. It's to put what is the most popular, the most competitive category. And so when you look at pricing, please, I urge you, do not look at just shelf price. Do not just go down to the corner store and see what the shelf price is, because a great percentage of the volume sold, and this is holistic, like across the United States, is on sale. There's some of it that's on sale. And so you have to look at what we call average unit price. And if anyone can access AC Nielsen data, they will have all of these different price specs on there. And average unit price is the most reflective of what WIC should be paying for that product. And in terms of losing the 2 ounces, yes, if mom would rather have a to-go or a portion controlled or a calorie controlled by having a 6-ounce cup, and Yoplait Original, just as an example, we have 26 flavors in that cup. You guys go to your dairy aisle, you'll see it. You'll see it with Greek and Chobani. I'm not trying to be selective, but you'll see a lot of flavor variety, not so much with the 32-ounce.
So just to sort of recapture, and maybe Clyde or Jeff might want to comment, are you saying that due to sales of the more commonly purchased items, that we should not assume that the cost per ounce, whether it's yogurt or cereal or something else, is necessarily going to be greater for the smaller size containers?
That is correct. You should look at it. And if it is, the question is how much more is it? Because it's on sale. And I don't know, I believe somebody from Dannon is here as well. We all, as manufacturers, we buy the AC Nielsen data in the categories where we compete. And so that means to WIC that any products that you're offering, there is somebody out there who has access to that kind of, and it should be fully nationally syndicated, cited data so that you guys know what you're getting, or we can help work with it. But the sale price, yes, it can be at or lower depending, because if you isolate a product in the marketplace that is there just for WIC, you'll see, experience shows that you'll see the price go up.
Thank you.
And that was certainly the experience with the 16-ounce loaf of bread. I started as the vendor manager in California about the time right about that time the food package went into effect, and I got regular phone calls from the public asking me why the WIC bread cost more than the 24-ounce loaf of regular whole wheat. I believe that has evened out now as enough time has passed, but that was a real problem.
More questions? Kathleen?
So one of the things that any shopper can observe in the grocery store is that when the economy goes bad, the amount of a product in the package gets smaller, and we wind up paying the same price, the customer winds up paying the same price for less food. And one of the challenges for this committee is to have a solution that keeps the customer from being subject to that at the same time as giving you flexibility to do things. And it eludes me how to do that. So if you have any insights how to make sure the customer still gets all the value they should, at the same time the package sizing and amounts are changing all around, it's very hard. So help us out here.
I think that's a very difficult challenge, to be honest. I'm not sure that there's anything, given how many food manufacturers and how many products are on the shelf, that WIC can control. And net weights do change. And it could be for a host of reasons, and certainly, I think the one that you describe is probably true and out there. But there are also other reasons why things change. I think knowing what is most commonly consumed and getting a net weight that's up there, especially with, with EBT, where we know that benefits are being under-redeemed because perhaps she didn't want that much product, or if, like we're suggesting with yogurt, that she might lose her 2 ounces, you could still keep it at the 32 ounce because there are some standards that are out there, and 32-ounce tubs have existed for a long time, and I don't know what in the world would happen that suddenly it would become 31, especially, when 32 is kind of a quart. But allowing that flexibility would maybe prevent some of the headaches out there in the WIC world on it, but I don't think there's an easy answer.
Okay, we have managed to get ourselves about 15 minutes behind schedule. So what we're going to do is take a quick break, and then we will reconvene, and we will have our WIC directors and our manufacturers and vendors in a joint panel. So, short break.
How's that going to work?